Well, welcome everybody. My name is Dr. Tammy Frame, and I am from eClass for Learning. I'm the Chief Learning Officer. And today I'm really excited because we are going to be working on the Totara Report Builder. And I'm using Totara 10, which is newly out. And we'll start with that. And I am recording today. We are using Zoom. So feel free to um, ask questions, and we'll just wait a couple minutes and see if other people are coming. I know. Okay. Great. We have a few more people joining. As I said, we are able to use the question and answer. And so feel free to use that throughout there. And my name is Dr. Tammy Frame, and I just wanted to wait a few minutes because at first there wasn't anybody, and now a whole bunch of people are joining. Today's topic is the Totara Report Builder, and I am using Totara 10. And you should be able to see my screen. If not, please put in the Q&A. This is the first time I'm using Zoom for a webinar instead of GoToMeeting, so this will be a little bit new. So in Totara 10, what you want to do is there is a tab for reports, and that tab only applies or will show up if you have reports that are specialized, that have been set up for you or that you have set up that you can view. So if I go to, I'm in as the site admin, and I did create some reports ahead of time today, and we're going to do some more. And you can see that I have 3 reports that I can see right there. And if I click on those, then my report will appear. I've got some filters at the top, and then from there I can filter that way, and I can see them. All right. Now, let's, what we're really going to talk about today is how to create your own reports. And again, please ask questions. I really suggest that. I think you learn a lot more, and it's a lot more dynamic. There's a lot to the report builder. It's really robust. So if somebody asks a question I can't answer, I'll be honest about that. And then I'll research it and get back to you. And we are recording today, so you what I can do is put that in the email that comes with the recording as well. Okay. All right. So let's start by looking how you would create your own report, and then we'll look at some that I have created as well. Okay. So what you need to do is have site admin rights. And then the site administrator can create these and can share them with different people, and they can even be scheduled. So under site admin, what you're looking for is report and report builder. And in Totara 10, they've broken this out a little bit. And it used to be report builder and then manage reports. But now there's general settings, manage user reports, manage embedded reports, and create report. So under general settings, it has different ways that the reports can be exported on your system. And then it has some different settings, and I won't read all of those today. You can read them at your own leisure. Some of them can slow down your system, and they do put warnings on those as well. So you can kind of read the pros and the cons and decide what things that you want to enable and what things you want to disable. And in Totara, when you check it, that means it's enabled. It isn't like a reverse logic. So if the default was yes and you checked it, it wouldn't make it no. Anything that's checked is on and enabled. Anything that is unchecked is not. Okay. And could somebody put in the chat, just to help me, being the first time that we're in Zoom, that you're hearing me okay and that you're seeing my screen okay, just so I know that we're okay? Okay, awesome. So we've got 2. Yes, okay, great. Thank you. That just makes me feel better being the first time. Okay, so you can go ahead and set as the site admin your general settings. I'm not going to read that all to you. And like I said, they give you the pluses and the minuses. Now, the next part are user reports. And these are reports that have been created by you. And what you can do here is you can get into the report builder and change the settings. And we will kind of look at these 3 a little bit later on. You can copy it or you can delete it. So that's kind of your menu of things that you've done. You can click one and export it as well if you want to. And the next one down is manage embedded reports. And this is pretty exciting. In the report build in Totara, most of it is in fact embedded reports actually. So these are all reports that, again, you can go in if you don't like the way something looks. In most cases, it's a report. You'll see a little button at the top that says edit this report. You can click there, or if you happen to know which report it is, you can also come in here. You can click on this and you'll get into the report builder, which I'll show in just a little bit. You could copy it, you can clone it, things like that. And so I love this because that means that most of Totara is in fact customizable, and you can control how it looks and what people see. And I think that makes it a very, very powerful platform. So we're going to spend the remainder of our time, or the majority of our time, on creating reports today. And this is kind of an introduction. And so when you're ready to create a report, besides all of the embedded reports, let's say you want some specific information, maybe you want that to go out to managers and you want it to go out monthly. Okay, and maybe you just want their direct reports and indirect reports perhaps on their report, their manager, let's say, and that's all that you want them to see. And you want to email to them monthly, and you want it to show up in their report tab. We could do all of that from the Create Report, and that opens up the report builder. So the first thing you have to do is name your report. So I'm going to do this one as a very simple course completion report, something that a lot of people would like, and maybe they just want to see for their direct reports who's going to see that. Now, if you click here, these are all the different areas of the database that we can make reports from. And so I'll go real slow, but I really recommend that you play with the report builder, because as you'll see later, it doesn't hurt anything to make reports and delete them. In fact, this is a demo site, but I do that all the time because I just make it so that only I'm not sharing it with others. And then if it doesn't work out the way that I want, I can delete it. And a lot of times that's how I learn. So sometimes I don't know what one is, and I think, okay, I'm going to try that one out and make a report and see what it does. Sometimes, a lot of times at eClass for Learning, we help our clients a lot. So they'll come up with, I want to be able to do this. And so I'll test it out, and then I'll send them the directions of how I got it to do. Often I find there's several ways to do anything because there's just so much flexibility in here. So if I start scrolling through the list, let's just go with a simple course completion. And there's all these different kinds that to help start you out. Okay, And then I can go to create report. Okay, and a lot of Totara, if you've been working with it, is tabular. So these are the different tabs of things that we can do with this report. So the first one is general, and I named it. Anything that has a red asterisk in Totara is required, so we do have to give it a name, but I don't have to give it a description. But if I had a lot of reports and that would help me out, I definitely could do that. It does have embedded help, as well as there is documentation on the report builder that's very helpful as well. From there, this is the source that I picked, was course completion. I'm going to show 40 records per page, and this is user generated, so that means it'll show up in my reports on that tab at the top. And then it will also show up for anybody I choose to share it with as well. So then I'm going to go to Save Changes. And again, feel free to type in questions. And now at the end of each tab, if you make any changes, you do have to save them. I first sometimes, even now, forget to do that and then can't understand why my report looks like it does. Now, I can view this report at any time. So if I wanted to see where we're at right now, I can just go to View Report, and it's showing me the different people and their different status, and if they completed it, the completion date. And let's just look at the columns. So I have the user's full name, the course name, the organization. So that refers back to the organizational hierarchy. And hierarchies are very much linked to reports. And if you onboard with us or you're a client with us, we will often start out by asking this very important question way at the beginning of what reports do you want to be able to see and who needs to see them? And that will help us map out the hierarchies. And so usually the organizational hierarchy would be the name of the organization, and you can have more than one. So I chose to have one for HR, one for headquarters, and I can have sub parts of those, and one for accounting. Okay, and a lot of people haven't, in my demo, haven't been assigned. Okay, so that's important because then I can filter out by those things too. And then if I wanted to put the full name there, I didn't put that in the fields of any of my users, so maybe we'll delete that column. And I didn't add any position names for any of my demo users, so I might delete that. And then if I wanted the completion position name, the completion status is pretty interesting. I think that's helpful to us, and the completion date. Now this report, when we picked it, it's just sort of a template. It suggests what kinds of columns that most people would want from this report, but we wouldn't necessarily have to keep all of this, and we can add other columns. So I can always jump back to edit this report at any time, and I can go into columns, and this can determine what columns we're going to have in the report. So user's full name, I was okay with that. The course name, the org name, I don't think we need this one, the completion organization name. I didn't have anything there. None of my fake users that I have in here have position names. I didn't give them a position. And so I don't care about what their position was when they completed either. And completion status was a good one for us, and the completion date was a good one. But I can also add any of these other columns that I wanted. So let's put the grade that they got, and let's put the passing grade that was required for the course as well. That seems sort of interesting. And so you get to determine what what kinds of things you want to include for your columns. Now, this next column, I'm just getting used to. This is sort of an advanced one, and I'm going to show some examples in my other reports that I set up ahead of time. And what it is really useful for is when you're creating graphs, because graphs can only use numerical numbers. And sometimes we want to count up things, okay? So most often in a graph, you would want count. And then it would count how many had completed, and I'll be able to pick maybe by course name, or I could say completion status by organization, like which division, things like that. So as you get into the more advanced stuff, and I'll show you some examples of that, I'm still getting more and more comfortable with graphs now. It won't graph if it can't have a number, and one good way to do that is figure out what it is you want to graph and then put count in there. This column is only used if it's checked, and let's say this is what Totara calls it, but let's say instead of grade, we call those scores in our organization. Now, when I save this, that would mean that when we view the report, now it says score up here. And so it's just kind of a way that you can rename your columns. And again, I can go back up to edit my report. I was working on columns. If I want to hide a column, I can. You saw me delete one. If I wanted to change the order, let's say I want pass grade before grade, I can go up and down and move things around too and decide what order columns are going to be in. Okay. Then there's going to be a default column that it's sorted by. So if I wanted to do it by the user's full name, we could do that. And if I want it from A to Z, then I could do that. And now, if I view this, it might have defaulted to that anyway. So I have somebody with no name there first, and then we've got Abby Gross because she starts with an A, and then admin user and Anatech and so on. So you can determine how that appears as well on your report. All right, back here. I think those are some of the major things on the columns that we want to cover. Always save your changes. And then we can move to the next tab. And the next tab is graph. And there are a number of graphs. And I'll show you some done ones that were successful that I was able to do. It does take a little bit of practicing because you have to have things that are numerical that it can come up with percentages of, and then it can put them in the pie or the bar graph and what the legend's going to be and so on. So I'll show you how I did some successful ones in a minute. That did take a little bit of practice on my end, and that count was really important. What is it that you want to graph? You want to make sure in the columns, that was kind of a learning curve for me, that you pick whatever it is, count, okay? The other thing that's kind of nice about the graph when you're setting it up is when you do it wrong, it won't show you that a graph has been updated, and it will give you red error messages of what's not working. So for example, when I first started, it said, well, I need something numerical here. You tried to count I don't know, something that can't be aggregated, so therefore I can't make a graph. And so I kind of learned by trial and error that way. And I think you'll learn by looking at some of my successful graphs too. And I'm going to send you some documentation on the reports that I graph so you can kind of get the hang of it if you want to practice. And I think practice really works well. And you shouldn't be afraid to practice because you can always, if you don't like it, you can change it and you can delete it or you can hide it from everybody else. And so it doesn't hurt anything to practice. Okay. Then the next one that I'm having a lot of success for a lot of use cases that clients are giving me is filters. So maybe you have a massive report, but you want to be able to filter it in different ways. Maybe you just only care about one course that's required, and you really need to filter out because that's due this month, and see if who completed that and who didn't. So here you can customize, again, the field name if you want to change any of these. And this was a little bit confusing for me too. Advanced means that it's going to show up on the second page, like show more, for filtering options. And that kind of confused me at first. So let's look at this report. Right now, the only thing that it's showing is if I wanted to sort by a name, then we get Abby Gross here, okay? But there were a lot of other filters on there. They're hidden under show more. And part of that is so that if they were all showing, you might be scrolling for quite a bit. So I find that this gets really, really helpful. The more familiar I get with the report builder, the more I might delete filters, and the more I might put things that I'm more apt to use on the front page. So let's see, I don't really care so much about these, but let's say I really want to do by course name, okay? So now I'm going to save this, and now view my report again. See, it's so easy to just see what changes you made. Now, instead of name, let's say I want any courses with the name security in it. And I just want to know how that course is going. Okay. Don't have any security courses. Okay. See if I have any named practice. No, I don't have a lot of courses in here. Let's go to clear. Security. Oh, see, we should have had a security course name contains. Okay, security. Did I spell it wrong? S. Try it one more time. There they go. I must have had a typo. Okay, so then here I can see my report, and I can export it in the different formats that I chose. And then I have what people got and what the pass score was for those people. Yeah, okay. Back to, let's go back and edit the report some more. You guys are a quiet group. Please ask questions if you have them. Back to filters, there's so much you can do, and a lot of times when people ask me, I want to be able to do this, I'm finding that the filters are really, really helping me, because at first I might be thrown, but then I realize, oh, if I just take a big report and filter it, I can get what they want. If you want just one at the side, let's say, let's do completion status. That's a good one. And I want to go to save changes. I like them on the side sometimes. I can go to view this report. And then, let's see, where did it go? Save this search. Let's try that again. Where did my side one go? Filters? Oh, I bet I didn't save. That was probably it. I make that error sometimes. Okay, so back to filters. Come on. There we go. And then my sidebar is going to be completion status, right? That was a good one. And I'm going to go to save changes, very important. And now view this report. Otherwise, it's not there. Users full. Show more. Put on the side. Okay. I guess I had to check it as well, so it would be on the front page. But let's say I want to do any courses that that matches complete. So I want to know who completed the security course. Then nobody. Okay. Um, is complete RPL means that it was imported from another system, or they had completed it previously and we imported it. And so we had two people that we imported into the system that had already completed it prior. Maybe they didn't do it in this system, but we have a record of that. So I got that. So again, these filters can really, really help me get where we want to get and get the information that we want to get. All right, when I go on this one, search field, okay. All right, well, I won't spend more time on that. We'll go to the next tab, is content. Now, content gets really fun and really interesting if you want data to roll up. So let's say in that scenario, you only wanted the managers to see the people that report to them and perhaps even their indirect reporting. So right now we're seeing all the records, but we could have different people see different reports. You know, it would depend on what data fits their position in the company. So we could put any of the criteria below or all of the criteria below. And there's lots of different ways we can roll up data. So we could do it based on the users and just show their own records. So maybe every user is going to see this, but they're only going to see their own completion. Now, this report would be less needed because there's an embedded report already that shows that for everybody on their dashboard and so on. But if we wanted to, we could do that. We could also check the user's direct reports or any indirect reports or temporary reports. And then when this goes on their report, if they're given permission, then that's who they're going to see. And so a different manager might see different people on their report. They would see whoever reports to them. When you set up these hierarchies, you know, you can have, for example, in this next category, you can have the CEO, and then maybe under the CEO, you have the vice president, and maybe under the vice president, you have HR and accounting, and under accounting, you have a book keeper. That's all kept in the position hierarchy, and when we set you up, we set all of those up, and that's why I asked that question at the beginning, who needs to see what? And that determines how we're going to set up those hierarchies. But I could say staff at or below. So if I were the CEO, that would mean everybody. But if I was accounting, I might only see myself and the bookkeeper positions. So you have different radio buttons for that. And when I work with clients, I often help figure out which of these we want to do. Show records from a staff and the user's organization. So there's a user position hierarchy and there's an org hierarchy. And so positions might be, you know, you've got accounting, you've got a CPA, and then maybe you have a bookkeeper, and it kind of is a hierarchy that way. Where this might be departments, or it might be regions, like everybody in the Northwest region, and then you can have subcategories under that. And you can have as many nested categories as you want. And so then you could say any organization you're assigned to, or below, at or below. So if I were the CPA, I could see CPAs and bookkeepers. If I was the CEO, I could see everybody, you know, and so everybody's report might show different data based on where you fit in that hierarchy. Okay, then you get to decide if you want records from the whole past based on completion date, the next 30 years. If the date is missing, do you still want to see that? Those kinds of things. So I'm going to not check any of these because our report might not show any data. I don't have any real users in here. And so, oh, good. I have a question. Great. I think this is something you plan to cover, but we'd be interested in seeing more about whether reports can be scheduled for auto distribution and if people can get that and or if people can get that on demand. Okay. I will cover that, Sean. Let me go through the last two tabs. The next one sort of kind of gets into that. And then we'll look back at this report and we'll talk about how we can schedule it as well and how, how that works for getting on demand. For the on demand, this next tab sort of kind of gets into that. So this one gets into who has access to it. And anybody that's checked here, it would show up on demand in their reports. So and then we can also, in addition, schedule reports for different ways. So let's do this tab and then we'll get into the scheduling in a second. So we could say all users can view this. And then in the content, the one before is sort of linked. We sort of decided what content will be on their report. So we could do course completion, but they only see their own, or they only see their own with the people below. But everybody gets a report. It just fills differently. And then it would show up for everybody on demand in the report thing if we did that. Or we can say only certain people with certain roles are going to see this on demand. So it could be a site manager, which is different than the site admin, okay? We could say course creator, editing trainer, learner, guest, authenticated user, which is anybody logged in, only those on the front page, and staff manager. And I'm finding that even for myself, these can be a little bit confusing. So it's easy to think that site manager is site admin, but it's different. And it's easy to think that a staff manager would be anybody that's a manager, but it isn't. Because the system does know who has people under them and who would be that kind of a manager. For people in these two groups especially, the other ones are assigned a little bit differently, but for these two groups, you go to users, permissions, assign system roles, and then there's a pick list. So for example, I don't have any site managers right now, but I do have 4 staff managers. And here's the list of people, and I can add this way who's supposed to be in that group. So there are a couple of those roles that are actually system roles. Not all of them are, but some are. So that was a little bit confusing to me in Totara 10 because I sort of assumed staff manager meant anybody that's a manager, but it doesn't. It's a special system role. Tammy, can you add a role to the system beyond these core positions? Yes, you can. And under, I believe, define roles, is where you can create a new role, add a new role, and then that would be in a pick list. So that's a really good question because then you can make different audiences and different roles and so on. Great question, Amy. So that's where you would do it. When you add a new role, one suggestion that I have is not to rename one of these, but to keep the default with all of its permissions the way it is. And if you're going to tweak any of these with permissions, just add a new role. Then you always have your default ones, because we have had clients that have played with these and then they want to go back to the default, and it's so much work. And so I always say leave the defaults the way they are. And if you're going to tweak something, just rename it and add a new role. And then that would show up from the list in the report builder of who you can assign it. So great idea, Amy. I like that a lot. So back to my reports, back here to our completion report that we were working on, we were talking about access. So for example, I could now add my staff manager. So that's who's going to see it up here in reports on demand. Save changes. Now, there's just one more performance. I don't use this too often, and you can read this. It talks about if you want only certain parts of a report, I think filters, and this would be if you had a massive report and you don't want to slow down your system. So that's, I really haven't run into that, but that is available. And also, if you want to enable report caching, you could do that too. But I don't work too much in that one. Let's get back to Sean's question, though, about how do we schedule these reports so that they go to people. So I have to go up to my report tab. I always get a little confused on that. And then from here, add a new scheduled report to the list. So let's say I want this course completion report to be scheduled. And I could say all data. In a minute, I'll show you another thing you can do is save your searches. And so if you wanted to save a search, we can do that too. I'll demo that in a second. So there might be more things to pull down, like a filtered one is you can send, how you want to export it, when you want it, how often you want it to go out, you know, and you can do the date and so on. And then there is such a thing called audiences. Audiences are different than system roles. System roles are also tied to what permissions you have in the system. But an audience can be, in Totara, it can be dynamic or it can be set. So I could set an audience based on a certain position in the company. So I could say all people in the HR department will make up a dynamic audience. And then if we get new people in the organization and they're part of HR, they'll automatically be added to that audience. They will automatically start getting emails with this report. I could also have maybe a set group, like a committee, that's only meeting for a month or something like that. And it's just random people in the company, and I can pick list them, name that audience, and assign it to them, okay? You could have any user in the system if you wanted to as well, so you can add that, and you could have an external email of somebody not in the system if you wanted to. And then you save the changes. And then you can always see where these reports are scheduled and see the settings of who's supposed to get them. Okay, so that's where we do the scheduled reports. Now on one of these, let's see if it's, okay, that one I had made a graph. Let's go back to this course completion one. I had filtered this out by security, and maybe I only want this course to go to managers. I don't care what people did on their own, but this one's required, and it's really important. I can save my search, okay, and I could call this security completion report. And this is how I help a lot of my clients, because they often get stuck, well, I have a report with everything, but I only want to show this. So now anytime I want to see that, I can see that report. But I could also, when I'm assigning the reports here, I can add a scheduled report, but now I can do, maybe I did the wrong one, not that one, course completion. Now I should see, yeah, my security completion report as the sub-filtered. They'll only get the filtered data now, and I can schedule that. So I found that really, really helpful when people say, I want to be able to do this. That's a way I've been able to get them to where they want to go. Yeah, you could. Okay, so Sean's question is for the scheduled reports, you couldn't send something for each manager that just shows their specific individual direct reports. They would be seen based on who is setting it up. No, they wouldn't. This is a little confusing, but I did this for a client recently. Back to my reports. Here's the key, Sean, of how that gets done. And I'm a big proponent of testing, so I often set up little tests, and I have managers and sub-managers. I don't have one on my Totara 10. I do on my 9. One set up just like that because I was testing it for a client. The key is content here. And right now, I have it set to all records. But in Sean's use case, he only wants them to see their direct reports. So if I set up a report, and again, I could clone them. Maybe I want to see all of them, so I make that report. But then I clone it, and the one that I'm going to schedule, I'm going to show records for any of the criteria below. And I'm going to show, based on the user, their direct reports, and I'm going to save it. Now, I'm not sure that I have any direct reports in here, so I'm not sure that this is going to work so well. Now, when I schedule it, those settings come with it. So when I pick a user from the system, they're only going to see their data and their direct reports. And if they had the role that put it dynamically up here, that is also, it knows who they are and it matches, which I think is one of the really powerful things. It's hard to wrap your head around, but they're only going to see the data that they should see of their direct reports if I set it this way. So Sean has another question to use. Okay, let's look at that again. View this, let's go to reports. And let's look at, let's just add this again. Scheduled report. If you have access to different data, I should test this out, Sean. This might be one that I'm not sure, because I did set one up for the client, and they, when I emailed them to my fake users, they saw their direct reports. If you have access to different data, okay. So you might be right, Sean, on this one on Totara 10. So I need to test that. In that case, what we might want to do is on the scheduled part, at least I know for sure if it's in their reports, it would work that way. But let me test this because I hadn't seen this before in 9. And let's double check that that's right. So that's really good. Thanks for bringing that up. So I will test that and make sure that the users only see, and I'll make a fake user and I'll have an email where it comes through, and we'll see if they see their direct reports or if they see everything that I see. Okay, so let me test that. You might be right, Sean. Yeah, I know for sure this one, they should see what rolls up. I'm kind of surprised that it would be what you see. So we'll check that one out. Great question. That's what I love about the webinars. It forces me to think about different things and get deeper. Let's look at 3 reports that have different graphs, so you can kind of see those and how those were set up. And keep the questions coming. These are good. So here's a course comparison bar chart, okay? And so I have that I could search by the certification name, a user's name, but I could also, if I just wanted to see expired or overdue, which is a lot of times what you want to see, I could filter out by those things too. So, and I guess my bar on this one isn't working. Let's just look quick if I can quickly figure out my graph and columns. Okay, yeah, all right. I'll go back to my reports here. That one didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Okay, let's try course completion report. So this is another one, and I put on the side if I want to see not yet started, in progress, complete, or people that had finished before we imported it into the system and had done it beforehand. And this is an example of how we got this, again with the count. So and completion status. So again, that count is really, really important. Let's see, usage by month was one more that I thought was kind of interesting. You can get this from the site stats, but you could also work on getting more information. So this is one that I often get asked for. And how, again, that count of user ID. So if we go to edit this report and we go to columns, I had time, but then I also was able to group it by month of year, so that allowed it to me. And then I wanted to count how many user IDs by each month. So kind of see how this aggregation of grouping is really important to get your graph going. Then when I went to graph, I picked line. It's almost always data series and columns, so you almost always use that. But then you pull down of the ones that I have. I wanted time, month, year, and then I wanted the count, and I clicked that one. This will autofill, but then you click which one. When I was first learning how, I wasn't quite sure what to do here. You click which of your options you want. So what I'm saying is, I want graphed time by month, year, and I want to know how many user IDs did that. And then I was able to save my changes. And that's kind of how the graph works. So I will send the settings for the different graphs too, so you can kind of see how they're working. I think it helps to see one that works, and then you can kind of learn how graphing, how you especially have to work with that count field. Are there other questions about the report builder? A lot of times clients come to me and ask questions, and I don't have the answer right away. I have to play a little bit, and I like to build a prototype on my test server, and then I like to document all the settings that I did. So anything else? Those were really great questions that you asked today. I'll look at Sean's and I'll run a test and see. I think you might be right that then it's not going to keep the content settings perhaps, so we'll have to double check that. And then you might just want to use the dynamic one. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I will send the recording, And I'll send also a couple other links with tutorials I think you'll find helpful. And for those of you that are clients, I like working with you on reports. I find that I learn a lot, and it's fun to understand your organization better that way. And so, yeah, keep the questions coming, and I'm happy to help out. And thanks very much, everybody. And our next webinar I should bring up is we're going to go over what's new in Totara 10. So if you go to the eClass for Learning website, and I'll also put these in the email. I think that one is next Thursday, but we have a section called webinars, and it gives date and time, and there is a place to sign up. So our next one, oh no, it isn't until December. So we have, and you can also sign up for our email list too if you'd like to. And so that one is what's new in Totara 10. One of the things that's new in Totara 10 is built-in user tours, and that's where you can sort of like when you are new to software and it has built-in suggestions of what the user might want to do next, or it points out different things and pop-ups, you can set those up. So that's pretty exciting. And so I think those would be the three that you would want to do. And I'm seeing that I don't have the date on here, so I'll add that one. If you hit save your seat, it is on December 14th. Great. So I hope we see you on future webinars, and thanks so much for coming today.